So fine, the topic is use of lipoprotein A in the clinical practice, a biomarker whose time has come. So this was the New York Times, or rather the third page headlines. Heart risk factor, even doctors know little about. This was there on Jan 9, 2018. And I think most of you will appreciate that. Probably prior to that, we were hardly using this LPA stuff quite a lot. But thereafter, obviously, you all are aware of it because of various new modalities which came into being for targeting LPA that we started looking into the LPA factor as well. So what is LPA? LPA was first introduced and classified as a lipoprotein variant about 20 years ago. Similar to LDL, but contain additional protein ApoA. It has an unusual species distribution, present only in primates and hedgehogs, as a result of which it becomes very difficult for animal models for the study of its metabolism and pathogenesis. So to date, the only major influence on LP level is the size polymorphism in the ApoA gene, and the traditional drugs are. So this is what lipoprotein is. It's a particle, LDL-like particle consisting of ApoB covalently bound to ApoA via a disulfide. It's likely evolved from the plasminogen gene, a proenzyme converted to the fibroprotein enzyme plasmin by activators such as TPA. And it has a lot of similarities to LDA, but it is more atherogenic, promoting both inflammation and thrombosis. LPAs have many isoforms. They are based on single 4 repeats, with all isoforms contributing to the atherogenic. But let me stop here because I remember now in May 1999 probably, we at BR Singh Hospital, we did a prevalence study in coronary artery disease population for LPA. And that time, 1999, and that time we found 38.4% of our population. That means basically the Eastern India population were having high LPA, where the target actually that time was about 30 milligrams per day. So definitely, thereafter we had just a prevalence study. We tried to correlate with it, but could not come to any conclusion. And this is the lipoprotein structure which I talked about. Am I audible? Hello.
Hello? You are audible. Go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Okay,
you are audible.
So,
yes, sir, you are
Kringle
audible.
4. Thank you. Kringle 4 repeats and LPA concentration. This is very important. See, when you see the mean, this particular graph, you can see the mean LPA concentration actually increases when the Kringle 4 repeats are lesser. As it increases, the LPA concentration decreases. So this is very important in when we try to see the isoforms. It's very important to know how number of Kringles repeats are there in that isoform. But then again, right in the start, I would say there are caveats to this. What is it? Measurement of LPA is currently not standardized or harmonized. You must have witnessed it, or you must have seen it clinically as well. When you're ordering a LPA and from 3 different laboratories, you're getting 3 different readings. Why? Because the methods used are not harmonized. Available assay report LPA is either in milligram or nanomole, and they may exhibit isoform dependent bias. So that is important, that this could be the reason why we don't have a standardized way of measurement. Evidence is also incomplete regarding the utility of using different risk cutoffs of LPA based on age, gender, ethnicity of comorbidity. So we are going to show it as far as race is concerned. As far as gender is concerned, we'll show it later. Elevated LPA appears to confirm elevated risk of atherosclerotic CVD over a wide range of LDLs. An LPA level 50 mg per dl may be considered risk enhancing factor favoring the initiation of statin therapy. This level corresponds to 80th population percentile in population which are predominantly Caucasian. Now this is important. A 50 milligram in a Caucasian population is 80th population percentile, but the corresponding 80th population percentile in African American is approximately 150. This is what we were talking about regarding the utility of using different risk cut points. That could be an important consideration, and that has to be tackled if really we want to target this LPA. And the reason is when we do these kind of studies, we use ELISA method to detect the LPA levels. And what happens, the LPA depends on the antibody use. There are 3 different antibodies used at different levels if you see, and they all have a variable kind of LPA levels. And this is what I was talking about. What does the Dallas heart study show? That LPA levels by race and ethnicity, if you see the blacks, the LPA level is high, and so is the incidence of cardiovascular disease. Similarly, if you consider that to white and Hispanic, it's almost, compared to the whites, is almost 3 times in blacks. So there is a race ethnicity variability as far as LPA level is concerned. Now, this particular meta-analysis, what does it show actually? That high lipoprotein A had a higher risk of mortality. And you can see this basically if you find this particular stuff. Sorry. Yeah. So here you can see as it increased from 150 to 9600, the hazard ratio increases. So LPA levels were associated with increased risk of mortality. Having LPA of more than 93 is associated with the hazard ratio of 1.5 cardiovascular mortality and 1.2 for all-cause mortality. So it was the labels which were very important. And then we come to the what are the measuring guidelines. See, these are again which need to be considered in your clinical basically. Now, how do you plan out your where would you like to measure the LPA level? But there are a few guidance basically which you can take into consideration and thereafter ask for a LPA level. LPA testing is reasonable to refine risk assessment for atherosclerotic CVD events in adults with first degree relatives with premature ASCVD, a personal history of premature ASCVD, or if there is a primary severe hypercholesteremia or suspected familial hypercholesteremia. So here you can use it for risk assessment. But LPA testing may be reasonable in adults to aid in clinician patient discussion about whether to prescribe a statin in those which are aged between 40 to 75 with borderline 5 to 7.4% 10-year ASCVD. To identify a possible cause for a less than anticipated LDL-C lowering to evidence-based LDL-C lowering therapy, to use in cascade screening of family members with severe hypercholesteremia, and to identify those at risk of progressive vascular aortic stenosis. So this is reasonable. You can always advise for LPA testing in this group of population. So in conclusion, we can say that wherever you see a premature atherosclerosis, there is a recurrent or progressive ASCVD despite optimal lipid lowering, where LP is associated with increases of calcific VAS proportional to the LPA level, and measuring LPA may be reasonable in these patients. Patients with high LPA level may have less than expected LDL-C lowering of statin therapy. So whenever you get a less than expected LDL-C lowering of statin therapy, you should think of whether that patient has a high LPA level or not. But there is lack of current evidence demonstrating the lowering LPA independently of LDL-C reduces atherosclerosis. So what is the key insight? LDL-C and LPA. LPA is an ApoB containing particle that cross reacts with LDL-C in most cases, and that is why very important we really define how to measure LPA. The LD obtained in a standard lipid panel reflects both LPA and LDC. There have been formulas advocated and practiced how to correlate between this LPA and LDL when you have a standard lipid panel results. In patients whose LDL does not fall appropriately with statin or ST-MILE, so-called the statin resistance, consider the possibility, as I said, of a high LPA. And formulas are there, but they are not standardized yet. Now, let's talk about the LPA. When does it really? It's a fully genetic entity, and this LPA gene is fully expressed by 1 to 2 years of age, and the concentration reaches adult level by 5 years of age. Fasting is not required because LPA is genetically transmitted. Youth whose parents have an elevated LPA levels are reasonable candidates for screening. Conversely, reverse cascade screening is not recommended when a child is also found to have an elevated level. So you can go and then check the status of their parents. Even in the absence of approved LPA lowering medication in youth found to have an elevated level of LPA, it is important to emphasize early and lifelong adaptation. But basically, when you don't have an LPA lowering medication as such, we hardly practice that. We first go for statin and thereafter other molecules. But if you have elevated, you need to advocate that there should be a lifelong adaptation of a heart healthy lifestyle by the child as well as family. Measurement of LPA in youth with a history of ischemic stroke may be reasonable. So what we are really talking about is the various measurement status and why. Because there are a lot of meta-analysis, prospective studies, Mendelian randomization, and GWA studies, which really confirms that high LPA has a high risk of MI and other cardiovascular events. So meta-analysis of prospective population-based studies of high LPA demonstrate high risk of MI, CSD, and ischemic stroke. Large prospective population-based studies of high LPA demonstrated high risk of MI, ischemic stroke, vas coronary, and other CVDs. Large Mendelian randomization and GWA studies, that is gender and woman assessment studies, confirm that high LPA is a causal factor for MI and other ischemic events. These causal relationships are independent of concentration of other lipid and lipoprotein, including LDL. So it's very important. LDLA, lipoprotein A, is independent of almost all other lipid and lipoprotein, and it should be considered where I say it's reasonable, where you need to measure those LPA. This was the Interheart study which showed the odd ratios for MI considering the LPA, and you see the South Asians and the Southeast Asians, they have a higher prevalence of MI when they had a high LPS. So this is, we are at a higher risk. And if you think the lipoprotein A levels and risk of aortic stenosis, so as the lipoprotein A level increases, the chances of aortic stenosis risk also increases. So this is important as well. So that is why whenever we are thinking of vascular aortic stenosis, and we should also think about lipoprotein A. And the elevated lipoprotein A and venous thrombosis is similar. As there is increase in lipoprotein A, these are the various studies which have been undertaken. All of them point towards one thing: there is an increased risk of venous thrombosis risk with increased lipoprotein A levels. So now we move on to basically to understand how does lipoprotein A influence the atherosclerotic CVD. So many studies have reported that plasma level of LPA are associated with cardiovascular disease. Many case control studies have shown significant association between elevated level of LPA and CAD. And these studies included survivors of myocardial infarction and patients of symptoms of angina and patients with angiographically diagnosed coronary disease. In addition, a retrospective case control design cannot distinguish whether LPA was a causative pathway or LPA levels were increased secondary to cardiovascular. So, if you take the meta-analysis of prospective studies also, they have a pointer, but retrospective studies will be very difficult to say LPA was the causative agent. So let's see, there was Dennis and colleague who reported a meta-analysis of 27 prospective studies on 5,000 CAD cases, and it really showed that subjects in general population with LPA concentration in the top third are at a 70% increased risk of CAD compared with the bottom. Means level of LPA levels, if you consider the one which had a higher levels were at a higher risk. In a prospective cohort study, which included 1,200 patients who undergone coronary angiography, Glader et al. Showed that LP levels greater than 30 independently predicted mortality. The authors concluded that the LPA levels exceeding this threshold indicates a poor future prognosis. This was a large-scale prospective study. This was done by Reykjavik, involving about 2,000 patients. With first event of MI or death from CHD, there were independent continuous LPA levels with the risk of future CHD. So basically, not only the meta-analysis, but independent studies also showed that there is huge association of LPA levels with CHD or few HSD. Further, the odd ratio of elevated LPA for CHD remains unaltered after adjustment for the established risk factors. This was also important. In addition, a recent collaborative analysis of individual data from 36 property studies involving more than 126, that's 126,000 participants demonstrate continuous. So basically, almost there are huge number of studies, huge level of meta-analysis of prospective studies. They all are pointed towards association of LPA levels and CHD. So what could be the mechanism basically? Why LPA is so important and why LPA has been shown to have an association with CHD? Apolipoprotein is attached to the apoprotein B segment of an LDL-like particle. This is what lipoprotein A is. This ApoA is homologous with plasminogen, which and may inhibit the fibrinolysis, thus increasing thrombosis. Through inhibition of thrombolysis at the site of rupture, plaque rupture, ApoA has the potential to cause MI and ischemic stroke. Thrombosis site of turbulent flow may lead to valvular aortic stenosis. ApoA possesses unique properties that promotes initiation and progression of atherosclerosis and calcific valvular aortic stenosis through endothelial dysfunction and pro-inflammatory response. Pro-osteogenics. So basically, ApoA is pro-atherogenic, pro-thrombotic, and pro-inflammatory. So with such a big, such a huge property, probably it is attributed to the linkage with CHD. Many of these effects are likely attributed to oxidized phospholipids, of which LPA is a preferential carrier, which are covalently attached to the ApoA portion of the lipoprotein. So again, this again explains the anti-inflammatory properties of the ApoA component of the LPA. So now we come to the hypothesis. These are the various factors which were taken into consideration why it could lead to increased association with the CHD. Now let's see what are the hypotheses. First, as a carrier of LDL moiety, an ApoB molecule, it seems likely that LPA can be classified as a pro-atherogenic LDL. In support of this, the LP has been detected in vessel wall, which appear to be retained more avidly than LDL. So LPA has been detected more frequently than LDL in the vessel wall. Second, based on the similarity between ApoA and plasminogen, a pro-thrombotic role of LPA interfering with the physiological role of plasminogen has been suggested, as I already said. The third is the presence of ApoA. A large carbohydrate-rich hydrophilic protein may obscure key features of LDL moiety interaction with factors in the cell. This might be due to interference with established LDL clearing pathway, due to the close distance between ApoA and LDL receptor binding sites in ApoA. Further, presence of this highly charged hydrophilic carbohydrate structure might offer opportunities for interaction with the cell. So this could be the third hypothesis. And the fourth one, which probably everyone knows about, that Simnikas et al., who had a great role in various studies with single repeats in ApoA, he demonstrated that pro-inflammatory oxidized phospholipids are preferentially bound to Cleveland 5 in ApoA. And these results suggest the LPA may have a preferential acceptor that tightly binds the oxidized phospholipids transferred from tissue from other. So as a result, considering these four different hypothetical mechanisms of this ApoA component of lipoprotein A, probably we can deduce that these could be the leading mechanism why LPA has a strong association. But as everyone knows, although LPA levels are major extent regulated by genetic factors, but some metabolic environment and inflammatory factors do play a role as well. So they might modulate the risk factor properties of the LPA, leading to the alteration in the LPA, which can enhance its pro-atherogenic property, leading to increased severity. So this could be the modulators over and above the genetic variability. And why that article in New York Times came, because at that particular times there were a whole lot of articles in different journals and all which really spoke of lipoprotein A, because at that time they were thinking of certain uh, treatment options which could target the lipoprotein A. I'll be coming back to later. And this was there in American College of Cardiology. Lipoprotein A, the next promising severity risk assessment tool and prevention target among the high risk population. This was another one, was lipoprotein A in clinical practice, new perspective on basic and translational science. And this was in Journal of Internal Medicine, where it really said the compelling evidence that the elevated lipoprotein A levels increase the risk of atherosclerotic disease in general population. So this was another article which was also published during that time, 2018, 19, 2017. This was later in 2019 which was published. And this is the time when actually the new therapy of antisense oligonucleotides, which came into prominence, and a lot of articles were written about it during that time. But the important is the paradox. Lipoprotein A and the risk of onset of type 2 diabetes. If you see the lipoprotein A increases, the risk of onset of type 2 diabetes decreases. This cannot be explained actually. This was there published in 2017, and it showed that quantiles of LPA concentration increase as it increases, the risk decreases of type 2 diabetes. This was just the paradox of the. So now we come to the treatment profile. How do we treat patients with increased lipoprotein? In the nutshell, what I would say, the current treatment which are accepted are lifestyle. First and foremost, lifestyle changes have minimal effect because it is more genetic factor which is responsible for increased lipoprotein A. Statins to lower LDL-C is okay, but it hardly decreases lipoprotein A. Estrogen replacement reported to lower LPA by almost 37%. Niacin, 1 to 3 grams per day, lowers LPA by 30 to 40%, but effectiveness in reducing events are unknown. Here I would like to narrate a case basically. So my personal patient. This patient is a doctor himself, and his patient basically his origin is in Calcutta, his mother resides here. This patient, after completing his MD pathology, he went to US and is now stationed there. He came to India just for a regular visit, and he probably holidaying in Goa when he suffered a MI. This patient was immediately taken in, and primary angioplasty was done to LAD. Patient was up and about, and then he came back to Calcutta, and we tried to look into the various parameters. At that time, we in Calcutta, what happens when we ask for lipid profile? Some of the diagnostic left to the LPA as well. So LPA was found to be 80. We didn't give much importance to that, and we gave the anti and post ATAC therapy as it is prescribed. 1 year later, this patient has come to Calcutta to visit his mother. Again, he suffered an MI. He called me over telephone. We took the patient to BM Birla Heart Research Center, and we did a primary angioplasty. This time, then it was not the same tissue; it was LCH, which was affected, and we did a primary angioplasty. And then we tried to look into the various factors. That time, aspirin resistance, statin resistance, all were thought about. And we maximized this, and then we did an LPA. LPA was found to be 300. This was the time when I introduced niacin, it was available, and 500 milligram twice daily. And we sent the patient back to US with this therapy, and the patient was seen there as well, and they had the extended release formulation. We also had this here, but uh, he was unable to tolerate that 1,000 milligram of niacin. So I think it was changed to the extended release formulation. Until date, he is on niacin extended release formulation, 500 milligram once a day, which is a very small dose, but that is what we have kept him in. No further ACVD for last 10 years. So as I was saying, niacin 1 to 3 grams lowers LPA by 30 to 40%. Effectiveness in reducing events unknown. Yeah, I have narrated your case where I think there was some effectiveness. So next is the PCSK9 inhibitor, modestly which lowers the LPA by 25%. Apheresis can significantly reduce levels, but it's obviously cumbersome. Yes. Let us look into a little bit more detail into these treatments. So what would you do when you find a patient LPA and a higher risk? Would you advocate aspirin in this case? It's a pro-thrombotic, pro-inflammatory, pro-arthrogenesis. This World Women's Health Initiative studies reported that the patient with a genetic confirmed SNP for elevated LPA had increased cardiovascular risk of hazard ratio 2.1. This risk was reduced by use of aspirin by almost 60%. That was very statistically significant. So aspirin is advocated in patients where you suspect that elevated LPA is important. So what we discussed in a nutshell, the treatment possibilities. Now let's go into a little bit of detail. Although LPA is not established cardiovascular risk factors and no guidelines recommend intervention, but it still remains as an important parameter for cardiovascular as a cardiovascular risk. Our current level of understanding would suggest LPA lowering might be beneficial, perhaps in subgroup of population, but then how to define such group with regard to LPA levels, size of presence of other risk factors. Further, a target LPA level has not been defined. A way of measuring has not been defined. So there are a lot of factors that need to be taken into consideration. Otherwise, it is difficult for planning out a treatment for high LPA level. Nicotinic acid or niacin is the only approved major hypolipidemic agent that proved efficacy in lowering LPA. The LPA lowering effect is graded and dose dependent, which we did find in this particular case, which I narrated. But then niacin has its own problems. It has lots of side effects. Flushing, pruritus, hyperuricemia. Therefore, we need to be the patient need to tolerate the dose in order to continue the medication. So, but extended release formulation definitely has a plus. They have limited adverse events in comparison to regular immediate. So they demonstrated a significant reduction in LP levels. Dietary approaches are disappointing. Several types of hormone have been found to affect LP level. Androgen and estrogen treatment. Estrogen treatment definitely has been reported to decrease LP lesion by about 37 to 50%. And in a recent technique et al. Address the effect of hormone replacement therapy on LP and cardiovascular. Let's see how does it really impact. This author showed LPA values were lower among patients taking hormone therapy and explored the effect of hormone therapy on the relationship of LPA and CVD. In patients not taking hormone therapy, the hazard ratio for future was higher. In contrast, among those who were taking HT, there was no significant association with CVD. This was important. This observation suggests there may be a threshold effect of the role of LPA as a risk factor. It has reported that a combination of estrogen and progesterone appears to have a more favorable effect in women with high initial LPA. Future intervention studies are needed definitely in order to endorse it. However, the interaction observed between LDL cholesterol and LPA in some studies suggests an aggressive LDL lowering might be beneficial, but hardly it has an impact on LPA. So the usual anti-lipid therapy has to go on, and thereafter future will decide whether treatment possibilities for lowering LPA is important and what could be the possibilities. So, as suggested, lifestyle therapy, no impact. Statin therapy, do not decrease. Patient with history of ASCVD who have sustained and have a LP of 50 milligram are increased risk. So, niacin lowers. Lomitapide, which is indicated to low LDL-C in patient with homologous, also lowers, but not of much value because it's not recommended for ASCVD risk reduction. PCSK9 inhibitors definitely lowers almost to the tune of 25%, and FRSs lowers LPA hugely, rather, I would say. So, in statin treated patient, high LPA is an independent risk factor, and as suggested, I have already spoken about it. So, niacin and hormone replacement can reduce LPA levels, but these drugs are not recommended, but because they have not demonstrated ASCVD benefit, but definitely they are recommended for LPA level reduction. So this was a 4-year study effect of evolocumab on lipoprotein A. If you see, there definitely has a reasonable amount of LPA reduction up to the tune of 25%. Apheresis has a huge impact on major cardiovascular event, whether it is MI, BPC, or CABG. Basically, if you see the events in apheresis treated patient were much less here 2 years post apheresis. But now this was the stuff which probably since 2018 everyone were excited about, and this alternative approaches was by gene silencing. So this antisense oligonucleotide, then your RNA photodiester and aptamer structure, which are DNA or RNA mixed modification, pegylation. These are the different therapies, or these are the approaches to gene silencing, thereby helping in lowering LP level. And probably they are still in the study. Phase 2, phase 3 trials are still going on. And as far as I think so, 2020 in January article, antisense had shown a huge impact in LP lowering. But more important was, how do we really give this therapy? And the technology behind to enhance the drug delivery and improve safety was developed, particularly the GalNAc, which is derived from galactose. Is a well characterized product which has worked very well. ApoA, LRX is 30 times more potent. So these drug delivery system for delivering the antisense technology will improve further the safety as well as efficacy, and definitely enhance the impact of this antisense technology. So this is also important. This is coming in a big way. Probably we will see in the near future that they have been taken as a ligand. So now I can conclude. Probably it's almost like 20 minutes or more. So to conclude, more than 45 years when it was first identified, still remains an enigmatic lipoprotein. Although risk factor role of LPA for cardiovascular disease has been controversial, but there are robust studies which suppose the association of LPA in promoting CVD or has a linkage with CVD. Despite the recognition of the risk factor, the atherogenic mechanism, though poorly understood, there are left several hypotheses already been shown that the ApoA is responsible stuff for most of the pro-thrombotic, pro-atherogenic, and pro-inflammatory part of the LPA. There is substantial heterogeneity in ApoA gene size and considerable variability in contribution of ApoA size to LPA level pose significant challenges. This underscores the importance of isoform-specific, allele-specific ApoA level. Again, there is a huge issue about this isoforms. Isoform depends upon the angles, and the allele-specific also depends upon how they are going to impact the size of the molecule as well as the concentration of the molecule. Further, LPA particles are smaller compared with the larger ApoA isoforms have a stronger risk factor for CVD. And diet and exercise don't play much of a role. So this alteration in LPA levels may in turn enhance its pro-atherogenic properties. This alteration means along with the various environmental and factors which alters the LPA. They might have a more pro-inflammatory role. Further, population-based and metabolism are warranted to understand how LPA participates in the relevant atherosclerosis and how ApoA molecule modulates this factor. So presently, what I show by this particular topic is that what a clinician should know about the LPA, why it is important. I narrated a case for you, and I hope probably most of the delegates and our panelists will approve of my points. Thank you.